Greetings and God bless. I just was watching or listening to an interview with Jennifer Daniels about how in China, um, how in China that, and this was an interview she did in 2005 or 2015, where we know, or maybe you might know that in China there's really um, bad pollution. So this is a communist country, as you may well know. And so when communists, fascists, when there's when there's lack of a republic, when there's lack of individual rights, there's no, it doesn't bode well for the people in that country. It doesn't bode well for the environment. So, and it is my opinion that the Chinese Communist Party has infiltrated the United States, not just at the highest levels, but you know, in most cities actually. So, but I digress. In China, though, some of us might be aware that there's a lot of bad air pollution because there's no government, no real, genuine, authentic government regulation because the communists do whatever they want to do. And in 2019, and I think it was happening in years prior. In Hong Kong, there were protests about how bad the air pollution was, and conveniently, uh, this began, right? And it was very convenient, to claim that there was an epidemic and to forcefully, either seal people in their homes or forcefully drag people away, never to be seen again. A million cell phones in China were shut down in 2020. And it seems to me that people were disappeared. There were like 3 or 4 crematoriums that were, watched on heat maps, like worldwide heat maps, and these crematoriums were like blazing for days. So there's speculation that people were just incinerated and the evidence was disposed of. Um, so, but I digress yet again. And one last thing that just stood out to me in the Jennifer Daniels interview is, so in China, because the air quality is so bad, that everybody wears masks. And I am wondering if, not only, so we know that covering your face, it's a satanic ritual abuse technology. When you alter your appearance, when you're wearing a mask or painting your body, or implementing some type of magical symbol on your person, it's a technology. It's a mechanism, and so I believe, and I understand that masks are a satanic ritual technology. And I'm also wondering if getting Americans to appear like Chinese people, getting Americans to wear what Chinese people are wearing because the air is so bad, if it's kind of creating this, um, mind control or cultural uh, influence kind of a thing. And of course, we're learning that there's graphene oxide in the material, and apparently graphene oxide makes people docile or something. It seems to have a similar effect like fluoride does. So the past couple of years, it's we've been seeing doctors dancing and doing choreographed performances and getting poked or poking, um, and then there's been a few that have blown the whistle on what crimes against humanities they've been seeing take place in the in the walls against vulnerable populations, against the vulnerable demographics of the elderly, the poor, um, the the abandoned, and and then we saw that um, the people who were keeping this machine going, they don't want to get that injection, but they made sure other people did. They made sure other people covered their face. They turned a blind eye when crimes were being committed. I'm sorry, that's just the facts, and it didn't just these this complicit, being complicit in all of this did not just start with coronavirus. This has been going on. This is just how medicine runs. It's a handy way to get rid of the undesirables, and the good people that work there they're just trying to get their paycheck. They just waiting for their retirement, and they're not going to create waves. And yes, there's nice people in this industry, just like there's nice people who work in the police or in schools. But there's so much of turning a blind eye by these very nice people. And the thing is, when you are a whistleblower, yeah, you're thrown under the bus. Everything, you lose everything. But I mean, I guess to me, I think for me, integrity and ideals, I just want to be able to live with myself. Um, and so I guess I'm just strange that way. But so, anyways, so these providers have, uh, you know, collaborated, complied with the masking, with the injecting, with the executions that the hospital got paid for. I mean, I bet not only did they get the stimulus package, the stimulus money from the COVID diagnoses on the death certificate and whatnot. I bet, because Medicare has pays for executions. They have an insurance designation for execution. So I think that hospitals need to be audited in nursing homes for the insurance number that Medicaid pays for executions. I think we need to get an audit on that. But so these practitioners, they don't want the injection. They've been doing their dances, or they've been keeping quiet while other people are dancing, doing black magic rituals, doing twerking in their scrubs, and a group of other people in their scrubs, and people are applauding. And yet, now these practitioners don't want to get the death poison. And I mean, of course, I don't think they should. I don't think they should have complied with this whole situation for the past 2 years. There's got to be a few people with a couple brain cells drubbed together in these industries that know that this is all a big disaster and it's all a lie. And I guess there's people who lack courage. So I bet there's more intelligence, but not much, but there's more intelligence than there is courage. And yeah, there's like Nurse Erin, another nurse who was in New York early on, and she was talking about how patients were basically murdered, or the care was so negligent, the patient was drowning in their own blood. And this is and the thing is, like, the culture in nurses is like, well, you shouldn't take death so seriously. Death is not a big deal. Death is just normal. You're not a professional if you can't see patients die. And if that's the way it is, I certainly don't want to have anything to do with that death cult. When you take death for granted, and when you have such a hard heart, that's a death cult. That's not medicine. That's not professional. You don't do a bait and switch. You don't say, I'm here to help you, and but really you're like, I don't care if you die. It's no big deal if you die. I mean, that's just not logical. And I'm sure there's going to be progressive liberal atheists who are going to be like, oh, it's no big deal if a nurse couldn't care less if I die. All right, let's anyway. So 10 minutes in, and I'm finally going to get to my point. So I'm listening to this talk by Jennifer Daniels, where there's this phenomenon in China where people. Let me see if I can find the term. I'm sorry. Well, it's where there's so much medical malpractice. So at the time of her show in 2015, 17,000 doctors were assaulted by former patients because of just the standard of medical malpractice. So in communist China, when you're under a tyranny, you can do whatever. You can kill people, you can molest children, you can enslave people, like China does. You can organ harvest, and China's too big to fail. Nobody's like, America's not holding China accountable. Americans are still buying Chinese products that are made with slave labor. And so when you are a totalitarian, satanically inspired regime, number one, you're going to do bad things, and you're not going to have any accountability. You're not going to have any dialogue. You're just going to be draconian. So you're just going to allow willful harm and murder. And so I'm actually kind of surprised that there's people who have indignation and some kind of, I don't know if I'd call it self-preservation, but some type of wanting justice, I guess. I'm surprised, but and because the Chinese people are not, they're pretty emotionally regulated. So to assault, especially a doctor, that really has to be like, those folks really have to have been, pushed to the limit. Like, that's just very extraordinary. I mean, I grew up in New York City, and just traditional Chinese people are not outspoken, much less, known for random violence, much less assaulting somebody with the status of a doctor, because we know that, like in China, doctors, that's a prestigious career, and so it's highly regarded. So, but it's happening because the malpractice is it's so bad, and it's so bad that doctors are afraid to practice in China. Now, if you are of a power, kind of power, a totalitarian, entitled mindset. So, if somebody is entitled, and let's say like in America, if you die in under a nurse's care, oh, that's part of the job. Sweep it under the rug, no big deal. So imagine that in China, where it's a dehumanized culture, under this communist, tracking, totalitarian regime. So where, it's like Chinese are considered, they could regard each other, some just as dispensable as insects, as a burden on the planet. So if the practitioner regards you as a cancer on the planet, which, I mean, a lot of progressive liberals regard humans as a cancer on the planet. I mean, in the United States, there's progressive liberals who think, there should be fewer humans. There's progressive liberals that think all conservatives should die. There's progressive liberals that think that all Christians really should be done away with. Make more room for the progressive liberals. And I'm sure if there was a progressive liberal that this was, if they were asked about this, they would totally say yes. Just go to Portland. But so when you're putting your care, when you're putting your health in the hands of somebody who thinks you're an insect, when you put your health in the hands of somebody who thinks you're a cancer on the planet, and then you die or you're injured, number one, the person who thinks you're an insect couldn't care less. And as a matter of fact, they might find some sort of satisfaction that you have died or that you've been injured. That's what you deserve, And so, and I am surprised that people like it's according to my research, I think there's been 1 million in mortality from, I'm going to be generous and just leave it at 1 million, due to the everything, due to the engineered crisis, and due to the lockdowns, and due to the suicides, and due to the genetic modification fluid. I would say it's 1 million in America. And like there's a few activists out there, and yet, wow, so 1 million people have been taken out, and how many have been harmed? Probably 4 times that number have been harmed. And yeah, people were just posting on social media, I'm like, there's, in other countries, people are gathering in the streets, and America is the most shut down place ever. And of course, I think it's engineered. I mean, so in America, everybody's in their car. If you're not in a major city, and then the thing is, who can afford to live in a major city that's walking friendly? San Francisco or New York. So who's that? That's the rich people. And where are the rich people living in San Francisco, New York for full time? No, they're in Mexico, or they're in Madrid, or they're living somewhere else. Like everybody who can afford the prime location that's walking distance, that's some sort of millionaire. They're probably getting some sort of kickback for owning this multi-million-dollar property, and they're not even there. I watch live videos of certain locations, and it's there's less people walking. And I think because real estate in prime walking friendly areas, I think prime real estate in walkable locations have been purchased by people who have no intention of living there. Those locations have been purchased and are left vacant by people who have no intent to rent to anybody who will live there. Because I've seen that time and time again, just living in different locations across the country, and I'm like, where are the residents? It doesn't seem like anybody's living in these apartment buildings or in these houses at these prime locations. So anyways, where is everybody? And 1 million people have been taken out, or maimed, disabled brutally. And it's not even just recently. It's not just with this current crisis that these harms have been committed. This has been going on for decades. And folks are just, okay, so people are just trying to take care of their families and get to work and, maintain take care of their parents and, just keep on keeping on. Maybe it takes too much time or effort uh, to insist that justice be um, demanded, and like and maybe that's what has to be done. Like maybe uh, we need to have been passive until now, because I do, when I'm every once in a while I see a conservative post where there's caution, like, there's agent provocateurs who are trying to make conservatives look bad. And in the late 80s, when there was the issue in the Middle East, like there was America was involved. uh, I can't remember which one it was. It was like, and they were, it was never called a war. It was just um, some type of American military occupation in the Middle East. But I was in college in the late 80s, and there was a lot of protests, and after that there were other. I guess it was more after 2000. So then there was like Occupy Wall Street, and then other subsequent protests. Um, and and it's interesting because when the liberals protest, it's an inconvenience and it's a nuisance. But when it's like the conservative protests, when the conservatives protest, it's all of a sudden it's everybody's a racist. Like whoever's protesting is a racist, Nazi, white supremacist. Even when you're just trying to protest freedom, like somehow protest, like demanding your freedom, demanding human rights, demanding to not be killed, demanding to keep all your body parts and not participate in a medical experiment. Like somehow that is you being a Nazi, saying, I don't want my body, I don't want to be raped, I don't want to be genetically modified. Because I don't want to be raped, because I don't want to be murdered, because I don't want to be genetically modified, I'm now considered a Nazi. I am now a white supremacist because I don't want to be killed, because I don't want to be genetically modified, because I don't want to be experimented on. I am now this bizarre thing, and it's very strange, but that's the liberal logic. And I have liberal family members, I have liberal friends. Well, I mean, not really, like I've known people a long time, and they they totally love the genification liquid. They totally love the suffocation. Um, it fails to be based on any logic, like logic, standard Aristotelian logic, even. Not to mention, like the weird kind of supernatural quality or element of, well, so doing genetic modification, like, are you sure you really want to do a genetic modification of your biology? Like, I mean, even New Age stuff would not, I mean, 2 years ago, it would not say, yeah, you want to genetically modify yourself, like, but now, apparently, carte blanche, whatever Fauci says, this is the cult of Fauci. And so so in China, where Chinese people are just regarded as indispensable, or as dispensable as insects, just cogs in the machine. And so when somebody's entitled, a doctor, privileged, they can kill people. No, it doesn't matter, because the person's a doctor. So the doctor is like a god. And so if a doctor kills somebody, it doesn't matter. But apparently enough Chinese people, and this is Chinese people, like Chinese people are not reactive murderer types, but there's this movement in China where they are assaulting doctors who have harmed, maimed, killed patients. And this is in China, where the people are suffocated regularly, they're poisoned by the air, they're psychologically manipulated. So I'm just like, wow, that is a testament to the human spirit. And I do believe that the medical industry has betrayed their clients, their patients, and this is way before, again, the CV. Because I've just personally observed this not only in my own life, observed this with members of my family, and it is interesting because I know people who have had tremendously wonderful experiences with doctors, where it was the best thing ever and where it helped them. So I don't understand what this double standard in medicine is, and I suspect that there's red flags, green flags, where I think that some doctors or some patients have something in their record that where the doctor is supposed to kill the patient, and I think there's something in somebody's record where the doctor's supposed to help the patient. That is my personal sense of things. I don't have, a documentation I can show like red light, green light, or something like that. But because it does seem like there's this extreme disparity of care. There's times where the medical procedure totally derails the person's health and their mindset, and uh, just sets the patient on the road to destruction. And then there's like other people who just have a totally successful experience in medicine. And I just uh, don't know how it could be so different, especially if it's in the same city and the same facilities. And it could be maybe just does the patient present well? Does the patient impress the doctor? Does the patient make the doctor like the patient? It could be that kind of a thing. That, well, if the patient thinks you're garbage, they will just kill you. They think they're putting you out of your misery or something like that. And I know what I'm saying is pretty surprising, but that's just been my personal experience, and and I'm sure it's the. I mean, and I know it's the experience of other people. When I used to be on Facebook, and I was in a lot of different Lyme community groups, and it was such a cliche that women in particular were ignored about their Lyme disease, about their chronic Lyme disease. And I mean, before I realized my issue was from chronic Lyme, like I was totally poo pooed. When I was in Portland, going to a doctor um, who who was supposed to be a liaison between allopathic and alternative medicine. So like, and it was just like hostility. Like I just met with like degrading, insulting, sexist hostility towards my concern about chronic fatigue. And I even had some testing with me, and testing that is a standard that's used to test for adrenal function. And even that doctor's testing showed I had subclinical, what's technically orthostatic or borderline adrenal function, but still, like for some reason, the guy would just wasn't willing to help me, like wasn't willing to, suggest adrenal protocols. He just said I needed mental uh, help, even though I had the tests, I had the blood test, I had the saliva test. It's very strange, and this was Oregon, where you'd think that there was more open mindedness. So, and this was like 2000, maybe 2008. And so, anyways, a lot of doctors do not regard their patients as human. They do not regard their patients as worthy of breathing the air or occupying this planet. And this is doctors, this is nurses, this is admins, this is CEOs of hospitals. Like, medicine is a very toxic, death, dangerous place, and you can just see that by the tools of their trade. And yeah, I guess if you have a car crash or if you have a broken leg, maybe you'll get out alive. I mean, I don't know about now because there's all these incentives with the stimulus for the CB. I would, and the thing is, everybody's just like justify committing crimes against humanity, committing crimes against God. When you kill people, when you harm people, like that's not a good thing. And people are just like, oh, I need to pay my rent. Oh, I need to pay my bills. Oh, I need to pay, my investments. Oh, I need to take care of my kids. Like that's the worst one, when people are like justifying crimes that they're doing, like soul killing actions. They're like, well, I'm taking care of my kids, so I get to kill this person. I get to degrade this person. I get to harm this person because I have to take care of my children. Like that is no excuse. And I know, so I mean, I've been the target of like some weird justification. Like parents do harm to me because they're taking care of their kids. If you're harming somebody in order to take care of your children, that's just some twisted child abuse. Like you shouldn't have to harm somebody in order to pay your bills. If and I know the world's a hard place. I know it's hard to find a good job. It's totally been my experience as well. But harming other people just so you can pay your bills and take care of your children, that is the worst, the lowest of the low of human existence. And you need to find something else, even if it's working a really crappy job, like, because you're going to have to meet your maker. In the end, you're going to have to answer for what you've done. So, anyways, I just was really surprised that in China, people are taking revenge on doctors that harm and kill. Like one of the examples is because the air quality in China is so bad, people have respiratory issues. And so then they get like sinus surgery, and it's a total flop because the issue isn't the person's sinuses. The issue is the pollution. And so what people need is like to not be, like what people need in China is there needs the smokestacks should stop. It should be filtered. Like it shouldn't poison the air. Like why is China poisoning its own air? Why is China trying to harm its own people? I mean, that's just like Chinese people are very intelligent people. They're very logical people. So they wouldn't be doing anything like this unless there was an intent. And the only creature that willfully harms those around it, like the only entity that makes sure that there's pollution is Satan. Like it's an insane, destructive creature. That's the only one. No normal human, no, not even a psychopathic human is like, oh, I want to pollute. I want to make it so I can't breathe. Like that's not that's even the worst of a normal biological human won't do that kind of thing. Unless maybe there's some sort of weird brain lesion or something. So, anyways, yeah, it seems to me that Americans have been under some type of spell, some type of stuckness, because folks are just walking into the cattle cars, folks are just willfully walking into the gas chambers with their children, pushing their children into the gas chambers in America and other places in the world. I've seen parents holding down their screaming, struggling child while the child is being having that genetic modification liquid penetrated into them. So, I mean, it's not just in America, but it's interesting how cowed people are and how indifferent and apathetic people are. And then in the conservative media, conservatives are told, don't do anything now. Don't do anything. And so this has been going on for the past couple of years. Don't do anything, and even just like showing up for a gathering that's like, oh, that's some sort of crisis, attack. That was an attack, just gathering. That's an attack. Let's send you to Guantanamo Bay. Very strange world we're in, and praise the Lord that we still have electricity, running water, the internet, and somehow, I mean, by miracles, millions of miracles a day, God is making, allowing the roads to be safe, because if people are suffocating themselves and they're pouring genetic modification nanotech into their bloodstream, there's no way that we couldn't have, more plane crashes and car crashes, but we don't. Like, things are pretty much running normally. And I'm convinced it's all God, that God is just pouring millions of miracles around us, and we don't deserve it. We've just been kind of quiet or compliant. So I wonder if we need to take a look at what other countries are doing when their doctors are doing medical malpractice as the standard of care, because this is unacceptable. I mean, it's unacceptable in humanity. Nobody gets to kill other people when the patient is coming for help. If a patient's coming to you for help, you don't get to kill that person. If a patient's coming for help, you don't get to harm that person or maim that person. And I understand every once in a while a mistake happens, and yeah, I'll grant whoever that sometimes mistakes happen, but when it's the standard of care to maim and kill, when that's the standard of care, when that's the expected outcome, when that's the goal, because you want a stimulus, you want that 10,000 to 350,000 for the CV diagnosis on the death certificate, like that's mind-boggling. And here we are 2 years into it, and I suspect it's going to be around possibly till the end. Like, there are a couple rays of hope. So maybe things will shift in a month or two. But it seems to me, I think we've gone too far. I don't think that there's any turning back. But I mean, I could be wrong, of course. But anyways, I just learned about this information and wanted to share my observations. So God bless.